Societal and political trends are rapidly breaking down the family that once was the cornerstone of our great American culture. At FIT, we know you cannot get this information on your own, so we'll bring it to your TV every single week. And we always invite all opposing views. Jeffrey Deskovic served 16 years in prison from age 17 to 32, wrongfully convicted of murder and rape prior to DNA evidence that cleared him 9 years earlier. Since that time, he's become a nationally recognized advocate with a master's degree from John Jay College of Criminal Justice, including a thesis written on wrongful conviction, causes and changes needed to prevent them. He has delivered more than 100 presentations across the country and authored more than 200 articles. He lobbied elected officials and testifies at legislative hearings. This guy does a lot. He gave hundreds of print, radio, and television interviews and is an adjunct professor teaching wrongful conviction college course at Rockland Community College and is considered an expert in wrongful convictions on a new TV show, The Security Brief. The special episodes titled Wrongfully Convicted, The Deskovic Files. That's a lot of stuff. Now, what you went through, Jeff, is hard for me to fathom. In our area, many of the people go to jail, and we often talk about them. And they usually go into jail for a couple of weeks and somebody purges them in a child support issue. Otherwise, they're not really in jail. But we do deal with that issue of your situation is beyond reproach. I can hardly believe it. So, from the top, what was your wrongful conviction caused by?
By a coerced false confession, prosecutorial misconduct, fraud by the medical examiner, and a public defender.
What happened? You can go ahead and tell your story. You're going to need to be doing a lot of talking here.
Okay. So I was 16 years old, and the Peekskill police took me from Peekskill across county lines to Putnam County, and they attached me to a polygraph machine. They put me in a small room. My mother didn't know where I was. I didn't have an attorney present. They attached me to the polygraph machine. The polygraphist himself was dressed as a civilian, was pretending not to be a cop. And basically, he gave me the third degree for about 7 hours. I mean, he invaded my personal space. He raised his voice at me. He kept asking me the same questions over and over again. Ultimately,
basically were treating you like you were guilty.
He was treating me like I was guilty, and then when threats and false promises were added to the mix, being totally overwhelmed psychologically and emotionally, I
was 16 years old.
I was 16 years old, and I gave a false confession.
So continue a little bit so
Sure,
I can
okay.
I'll feed in with you, because I remember the story, and I know you have a lot of important things to say, and my questions aren't timed out for you, so the story is continuous for sure.
Got you. Okay, so the prosecutorial misconduct comes in because before I went to trial, the DNA test came in from the FBI lab, which showed that semen found in the victim didn't match me. But instead of
this was 9 years, did I get that right?
I was exonerated 9 years ago. So the actual wrongful conviction happened about 25 years ago.
Oh, wow, okay.
So the prosecutor got the medical examiner to commit fraud and claimed that he found medical evidence to show that the victim had been sexually active, which is what opened the door for him to argue that it didn't matter that the semen didn't match me. The terrible public defender came in. He never interviewed or called as a witness my alibi. I was actually playing wiffle ball at the time of the crime. He never cross-examined the medical examiner. He never explained to the jury what the DNA not matching me meant, or used that to argue that the confession was coerced and false. Very rarely met with me.
So did you have any evidence at all at the time you were playing wiffle ball that you had
my alibi?
An alibi?
It was the alibi. And by the way, when I was later exonerated and I sued everybody that had a hand in it, that was why legal aid had to settle with me, because there was a note in the legal aid file memorializing the fact that I told him who my alibi was and what I was doing.
And they didn't
follow up.
Oh my God. I mean, to think that I have to ask you this question now because it's been in the back of my head for a long time since I first saw you. How do you recover from something like this? I mean, obviously you've done an awful lot of things. I just read the opening to everybody on the show that you've actually took an issue with how dare they do that, and you went after them as best as you could. But what was your feeling about going through all this? I mean, how did you recover emotionally?
I did a lot of therapy. The advocacy work, which we reference, is a big part of that, though, because it's healing, it's cathartic. I feel like I'm making a difference. It's how I make sense of things in a grander scheme. But that having been said, I mean, as you know, it's been a really difficult struggle. I mean, aside from the psychological things, I mean, overcoming post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety attacks, feeling like I'm moving at a slower speed than the rest of the world, having been frozen in time.
Yeah.
There's technological differences. I mean, we had no cell phone, internet, GPS.
I'm so glad you're saying this because people have no idea, but now they do. So a lot of people, I never thought about it either until I heard you speak about it. Go ahead.
The culture is different. Is much different too. Whenever I meet with my extended family, it's an awkward experience. I know who they are. I have memories of them, but I spent so much time away from them. They're different, and I'm different. It's been very hard socially, just trying to make a new set of friends. There's a stigma attached. You know, well, what do you?
That follows you along no matter what.
Follows you along. Listen, you were there wrongfully, yes, but you were there for 16 years. How much?
So you
of that
must be a little
rubbed
wacky
off
someplace.
on you?
Oh my God!
Yes, it is. So
see, these are the things that get me because even, I mean, it's terrible. And by the way, the audience should know. I'll tell them up front a little bit that you were eventually remunerated to at some point. They were actually able to. You were able to sue and win.
That's right.
Okay. Thank
God.
Thank God for that.
Of course. And I want to just add, though, on the economic level, you know, I was never able to obtain gainful employment because every time I applied for a job, I didn't have the same level of job experience that other people
Never mind
had.
that you were exonerated and free, and so, oh my God, here's your get out of jail ticket, so to speak. You also had to deal with the fact that, what have you been doing?
Yes, exactly. It was a very difficult 5-year existence post-release because when they release you with nothing. And although you can get remuneration, that you have to file a lawsuit, that takes between 3 to 7 years. There is no social service or reintegrative assistance for exonerees. They don't give you temporary housing, cost of living expenses, mental health services, doctor care, dental, job training, job placement, public transportation. You're released akin to reintroducing an animal back out into the forest or the jungle.
What an analogy. What an analogy. You appealed. I don't want to go. I'm going to go back and forth with you a little bit because my questions aren't timed up with your story. Your story is very powerful. I want you to control it. But you appealed, right? And
I appealed 7 times.
Okay.
And I lost 7 times.
Why wasn't the evidence ever seen in your case? Why wasn't it ever?
It was seen. It was the basis for my appeals.
Put aside.
Yeah, the courts. In fact, the appellate division ruled that there was overwhelming evidence of guilt, which didn't make any sense because the DNA was in my behalf. But after that first ruling, I never received a substantive ruling after that. Although I appealed 6 more times. I mean, the court denied my re-argument motion. Court of Appeals declined to let me appeal to them. I lost in federal court. You're going to love this one. I lost because my paperwork arrived 4 days late because the court clerk gave my lawyer the wrong information regarding filing procedure.
Again, not your fault.
Not my fault.
Did you feel like this was coming back to haunt you? It must have been a terrible feeling to have that happen.
It was because I thought I was going to win. Look, I was naive up until the end. I actually thought that the court system got more accurate as you went higher up, right? So this was the proceeding I was going to win, or so I thought. Then once I lost there, the courts they upheld that ruling the rest of the way, and then I got turned down for parole because I maintained my innocence as opposed to taking responsibility and expressing remorse. So I got turned down that way. It was at that moment that I felt fairly certain I was going to die in prison for a crime I didn't commit.
You know what reminds me of the film I've seen so far on television when people are coming up for parole, and they have this. It always seems to not work for them as they're coming up the parole board. Now I'm wondering, here you are, an innocent man, haven't had that opportunity, and you failed at this thing. How many of those people are innocent? I mean, did you ever? Do you have any idea what that's like? That's what you do, right?
That's what I do. In fact, that phenomenon is called the innocent prisoner's dilemma, which is, do you assert your innocence but thereby risk extending an already unjust prison stay, or do you instead falsely admit guilt and express remorse, knowing just to slightly enhance your chance of getting out, knowing that if your conviction is later reversed but not dismissed, if they retry you, they can use what you say at the parole board in order to try to reconvict you.
Re-argue or something?
What? We'll say that again?
Reconvict or re-argue you?
Well, they can, if they take you back to trial, because sometimes the court will not dismiss a case, they'll simply give you another trial, at which the district attorney can try to reconvict you. And they could use those statements at the parole board. But to get more to another branch of the question you're asking me, I believe the percentage of wrongfully convicted prisoners is between 15 to 20%. That's my educated guess.
That sounds very high. I mean,
it is. Well, let me give you some stats, though.
Okay.
Okay, so last year, 137 people were exonerated. And then in 2013, 2012, 91 people were exonerated. The National Registry of Exonerations, which tracks exonerations from 1989 forward, have documented more than 1,600. The National Registry of Exonerations.
Wow.
It's an informational clearinghouse of all exonerations nationally. So from 1989 forward.
We should look into that.
You should. You should. It's more than I want the viewers to, because it's more than 1,600 people who have been exonerated since then. When you think about every time there's a rogue detective, that his career spans several decades, or a forensic scientist who's engaging in forensic fraud, who's touched thousands of cases, or junk scientists, things that used to be accepted as evidence in the courtroom, such as tire tracks, bite marks, footprints, voice test, hair, to name just a few things, that has been used as evidence in thousands of cases and yet is scientifically unsound. I believe it's the iceberg effect. What we see above the surface is but a fraction of what's really going on under the water.
That sounds like a lot of what we do in legal reform issues, that so many things are left unheard in a case when you're going to courts to get even simple things like custody, and certain things are heard and they're manipulated, and it just seems like it's a game sometimes. Like there's no reality to it.
Well, I feel like it is. That's just it. It is. It's supposed to be about truth and justice and the search for the truth, but too often it becomes a game, a high-stakes game.
They play with your life.
I agree with many other people's. I mean, winning becomes everything. See, a prosecutor's actual duty is to be a minister of justice, seek a just outcome, whether that means convicting the guilty through legal means or dismissing a case against the innocent. But too often it's about one-upsmanship. Can I win the conviction? Can I get that promotion? Can my office run on its record? We have a 99% conviction rate.
The game is played with pieces you don't have.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's not a balanced field in terms of flow of information.
Not fair weaponry here.
No, it becomes too often it's trial by ambush, because a prosecutor doesn't turn over the information to the 11th hour. If then, rather than both sides having same information, that's one of the reforms, by the way, that I advocate for, is automatic discovery. I mean, the information should be shared by both sides. From the very beginning.
I love some of these terms, trial by ambush. I'm writing some of them down. Never heard these before. They're really good. Keep them in your repertoire.
Thank you. We nearly passed, real quickly, we almost passed in New York here, the coalition group I'm part of, we nearly passed a bill which would have established a commission on prosecutor conduct. Do you realize that that's the only profession where there's no oversight board? You got insurance, doctors, dental, there's an oversight board.
You haven't been to family court lately?
No,
there's not a lot of family court, not a lot of review.
Right. But they have this
oversight.
There's a commission on judicial conduct, isn't there?
Yeah, but there's, the turnover rate is like 1%. It's like throwing paper in the wind.
Gotcha. Lots of parts of the justice system.
It's making me think that this is a conspiracy, There's not a lot of fairness in the legal system.
There is not.
What was it like, tell us a little bit about your story while you were in prison. What was it like being, imprisoned and having to deal with knowing that you're innocent and everybody around you may or may not be, and probably isn't, based on your rule, it'd be 80 to 85% of these people are guilty of something.
Right. Yeah, of course. Well, it was very dangerous. I mean, I'm 17, especially starting out. I'm 17 years old. I'm weighing about 150 pounds.
Oh my God, you're a kid, right?
I'm in a men's maximum security prison, right, with people who have committed dangerous crimes. Look, half the time I couldn't believe this was really happening, because I couldn't believe that I'm an innocent person in prison. But then also, you're fighting an internal battle up here. You have to fight off depression, hopelessness, helplessness. You think of suicide once in a while, and it's hard even just to keep the morale going, just to keep fighting.
I can see that. Oh my God.
It's a miracle I'm out here to be able to sit down and talk with you. I mean, they left me for dead in there.
I was going to say, I hope you consider it a miracle, because right now, every day going forward is a blessing in disguise.
I absolutely believe that.
Oh, beautiful. Okay.
I do believe
were there others in prison that you met that may have been innocent that you come across in your travel?
Yeah, there were 13 people that have been exonerated either before me or after me. 3 of them I knew at the time. In fact, one guy, Frank Sterling, who was in for 18 years on a murder case, we kept each other going 13 years. We should get together
Oh, my God.
every 6 weeks, and we commiserate. We try to keep each other going morale-wise, and we strategize what's the next move to make. And we made a promise to each other, by the way. Whoever got out first would try to help the other, but
Good.
if it was nothing more than just trying to call attention to their case. And frankly, I thought it would be him because he had representation before me, but I made it out first, and I kept my word.
Is he out now?
He is.
Oh.
He is. I drove up. I drove 5 hours after I missed the train. I drove 5 hours through Rochester. I wasn't going to miss that.
Oh,
in all the
yeah,
world,
yeah.
to see him be exonerated, and I was one of the first people that greeted him in the courtroom after the judge made his ruling. I gave him a nice big hug, and I yelled, Frank, we made it.
Oh
we
my
made
God!
it.
Oh my God!
You know.
I wish I had my camera there. I would love to have seen that, and actually heard what he had to say.
Yeah.
Holy!
He was speechless, actually.
So let's go back into readjusting your society and coming back in. I think I find that interesting. I'm sure the audience will feel the same way about it because you're put away. You're in for a significant period of time at a
Yeah.
young age.
Right.
You miss your cultural changes there. You miss your growing up. You miss a lot of growing up stuff.
I did, and I missed graduating high school. I missed the prom.
Family life.
Family, yeah, deaths, births, holidays, rites of passage.
Yeah, normal things that people go through. You didn't have the chance to experience
That's
that.
right.
When you came back and going back to the family again too, you
Yes.
said there was a little bit of a difficulty in
Yes.
them accepting you, I guess. Is that
Well, it
fair?
was more that they were strangers to me. They'd become strangers to me, and I'd become strangers to them, and it was really hard to communicate. I mean, what did they know about the experience I had just been through, and how could I explain it?
Did they have any? When I say they, I mean, did the system or the court itself have any kind of redressing of how to help you get back in? A kind of
No, absolutely
a
no.
helping process of any
No,
kind?
that's what the point I was trying to make earlier.
You mean about the throwing out like a wall, like an animal?
Yes, they just release you with nothing. That's it.
No
Look, if I was-
contemplation of where you would land.
No. Look, if I was guilty and on parole, I'd have more assistance than what I had as an innocent man.
Jeez.
And I know it's terrible. I think that's one of the
It's
things
hard
that
for me
should
to
change.
wrap my head around that.
Yeah, you would think that the state has a moral responsibility to help people rebuild their life.
You would think.
After the system, yeah. But I want to know. This is a rhetorical question. I want to know why don't the legislators in Albany? Why can't we get some legislation passed not only to prevent this from happening to people, but to address reentry when people are exonerated and released? It's shameful what we do.
Absolutely, it's disgusting. Well, I don't know what it would take. It doesn't seem like they have so much effort and so much money piled into how to get somebody convicted of something, and nothing how to help somebody find out whether they're innocent. In your case, you had DNA evidence that showed you were innocent.
Yes.
That's to me the bigger crime. But you still had to suffer for a while in jail before you even had that opportunity, right?
Right.
I mean, it didn't happen
the
right
second,
away.
The second, no, remember, I had the DNA testing before I was convicted. I was convicted anyway. And then 16 years later, I got further testing because the data bank was
But wasn't the initial testing good enough, though?
It should have been.
It should have been, right?
It should have been, but it wasn't. Well, that's what tunnel vision's about, though. It let you ignore the evidence that doesn't support the conclusion and focus on the part.
Yeah,
that
that's where I was
does.
going. It seems like the game before, there's like a game being played. It's like, what can we do to get this guy to continue in the path, to get him that place in the jail that needs beds filled, for lack of a better way to put it. It's like a hospital makes more money when there's more people in.
Yeah, sure, of course. But I think that I don't think that they're thinking in terms of the prison beds. I think they're just thinking in terms of their careers and and not wanting to admit an error.
So they had
perks and scrutiny is what I'm getting at.
Say that again. The what?
Perks. And
perks.
Perks and scrutiny.
I see. So they didn't have any kind of system to help you get back in.
No.
Is this true for everybody?
This is true for everybody.
There's a lot of people who.
In fact, in 19 states, it's worse than New York. There is no compensation at all.
Oh, so
there's 19 states where there's no compensation at all, including Pennsylvania, which is near New York.
So what?
So those people there are in an even worse position than what I'm in.
No that doesn't seem right. I mean,
I agree. It doesn't. It's not right morally, but it is what the law is. And for some reason, we can't seem to muster the political will to get a change. I don't know why some of the elected officials even run for office. Are you there to really serve, or is it, just to better yourself? Because there doesn't seem to be much care for the population. When you look at an example such as that, you would think that's a non-controversial item, isn't it?
Yeah, right. Should be easy. It should be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your organization. That's the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation, right, for Justice?
It is.
Okay, and you received, we want to discuss how much you've received, does it matter?
It doesn't. It's a public record. I'll share
Okay.
with the audience. Why not?
Okay, so you received $1.5 million of compensation.
Well, that was what I put into the organization. That's not what I received. I received more than that.
Oh, okay, good.
Yes. But I put that amount into the organization because I didn't want to leave behind the people that I had metaphorically left behind, and that took my advocacy work to the next level. So I have a small staff, and the legal team, they work on trying to free other wrongfully convicted people, whereas I focus on the policy and the awareness and the reintegrative part.
What kind of person do you have on your staff? That
I have a full-time attorney, an investigator, and a paralegal. So that's the 3-person legal team. In 3 years' time, well, these are our results.
Okay.
We helped exonerate one person, William Lopez, who was in for 23 and a half years in a wrongful conviction case out of Brooklyn. We convinced the parole board to release 3 people on parole while they were maintaining their innocence. Normally they deny you. And then we also have helped 4 people reintegrate back into society after they were released. The foundation leases a 2-bedroom apartment, and it served as short-term housing. What our challenge is, and we have 8 active cases now. The challenge is this, is that I need to add people to the board. I need to build a donor base. Until you get your first large donor or your first grant, nobody wants to be the first in. But there is a need for my organization because the other organizations, most of them only do DNA cases, which is only around 5 to 12%. So you could be in prison, wrongfully convicted of a murder. The actual perpetrator is confessing, but if you don't have DNA, there's no investigator to send out. So that's a case in point. So we do that. We advocate policy issues the other organizations are silent on. We have the housing part of it, what I mentioned about parole. Lastly, we're the only organization started by somebody coming from my position, which has an exonerative component in which they use some of their compensation to jumpstart the organization.
Let me ask you something. Did you discover in your foundation that there might be, the obvious cracks in the system? I want to
Yes.
get to something that you may have discovered or can penetrate to make change happen. That's what I know that's your purpose.
Yes.
But have you discovered anything that worked so far that you're able to be successful about, other than the exonerations, which are the main reason why, of course. But.
Right, of course. Well, there's changes that we got close to almost passing. So we almost got a commission on prosecutor conduct
Almost.
passed. Almost. We got all the way to the Rules Committee in the Senate and the Assembly. We got strong bipartisan support. Actually, even got out of the Rules Committee in the Senate, which is that's the last stop for a general vote. We ran out of time. But some of the other measures, though, videotaping interrogations, preserving evidence so that it can be tested.
I thought they did that all the time. I thought they always videotaped investigations.
No, interrogations. No, they don't. In fact, like in my case, for example, the interrogation was not videotaped.
Let's say that it was. Would you have had a better chance?
Yes, I would have. It would have been clear that they were coercing me, and they wouldn't have dared to threaten me on camera, right? I would have to think that they wouldn't. Well, if they would, that would be their career right there, and I certainly would have been, acquitted. It would have made all the difference in the world to me. We talked about automatic discovery earlier. Sharing information right away. One of the ironic things is that I had greater discovery rights as a litigant pursuing a lawsuit after I was exonerated than what I did when I was originally defending myself against the false charges.
Being innocent.
Being innocent. Yeah, so that's the clear-cut important thing. We got to have a better system of public defense. It's an uneven playing field between a prosecutor's office and a public defender's office. They have an almost unlimited budget for manpower, investigators, experts. The public defender is often resorting to asking a judge to allocate discretionary funding, which most of the time they say no. It's not unusual for one public defender to represent 100 people at the same time. All right, imagine doing that.
No, I can't imagine 2.
Yeah, what kind of defense are the people getting?
Yeah, what kind of defense, right?
Lack of equal pay is another big thing. We need to have one statewide system because there's no oversight of quality control.
It seems to me like, look at this, if the people in Pennsylvania can't even get compensation, there should be some kind of national grouping of something that would eliminate a lot of these problems.
Yeah, but it's a state law issue.
It's a state by state.
It's a state by state.
Yeah, we have the
process.
same issue in family law. It's state by state run. So many states mediate. I'm a mediator, so so many states already have it in place where you can do that, but not here in New York because they restrain. They want to stay away from. The attorneys will lose a lot of money, basically. I guess is their impression.
Yeah, but you're trying to bring.
You're trying to bring. I know.
You want to get justice, or you want to line the pockets? What's the greater?
Yeah.
What's the greater?
Yeah, I'm beginning to think there's way more corruption than I ever could have imagined. And every time I see it, and I hear stories like yours, I'm confounded. But in a way, I'm not, because it just keeps coming.
Yeah, of course.
You
But
know.
I believe that. But see, I think that to some extent each exoneration makes it easier for the next one to happen because judges are more willing to consider the possibility of innocence. Same thing with the cops and
You think
and
that's oh
prosecutors.
good.
I do think that is a
You
trend.
should have your group every time somebody's convicted of something, you should have right on their necks, because I don't trust anybody anymore in that system. In the
I
last
hear you on
minute, you
that.
got to fill us up at the last minute here. We're gonna close the show out. Is there any,
Okay.
let you to promote your group here?
Yeah, sure. Interested people can go to our website, www.deskovic.org. Here's the help we need, okay? I need people who can serve as board members or connectors, open their networks. I mean, I don't have a network since I was incarcerated for 16 years. Certainly liking our social media page, the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation. We're on Facebook. My dream is one day we'll have enough followers we can try to get corporate sponsors if we have enough of an audience there. Those are learn more about wrongful convictions. Regardless of the politics, pro or for, I remember when President Obama ran for president, right? He raised $100 million, mostly with donations of $10 to $100. A lot of times we think we have to be wealthy, but actually every little bit makes a difference.
Right, yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for having
Welcome
me.
back, yes. I hope a lot of good things for your organization.
Amen. From your
Yes,
mouth
yes.
to God's ears, right?
That's right. Societal and political trends are rapidly breaking down the family that once was the cornerstone of our great American culture. At FIT, we know you cannot get this information on your own, so we'll bring it to your TV every single week. Look at this. My name is Chris DiMaggio. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next week.